back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman. Our next guest, Mark Furman, director and shareholder of Tarlow Breed, Hart Rodgers. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, Jonathan. How are you?
Good, thank you. Always good to be with you on the radio, and I know you always bring timely and topical subjects to our listening audience. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I thought we should talk about defamation a little bit today, Jonathan.
Ah,
Couple of There's a local story and a national story on defamation. They both involve
because there's nobody out there defaming anybody these days.
hardly ever, hardly ever. But there are two settlements that I found interesting. One is ABC News uh,
Yep.
and President-elect Trump entered into an agreement that relates to George Stephanopoulos on air referring to um, Mr. Trump as being found guilty of rape in connection with the E. Jean Carroll. So the
What do you start, if you will, Mark? Just give us like a really broad definition, because I think definition, it's helpful to have a context, because I think a lot of people think definition is defamation is you can't say anything about anybody.
no,
But there must be a legal definition of some sort.
yeah, you can't say things that would hold people up to ridicule that are false. So if someone is convicted of having engaged in, is found liable for having engaged in sexual assault, and they were found liable, they were found to have engaged in sexual assault, that would be fine.
Well, as
But
long as it's factual, you can state it, but there
yes,
must be a fine line somewhere,
yeah.
as
If
always.
so, the question is, in that case, was Mr. Stephanopoulos' use of the word rape instead of sexual assault false? He
Hmm.
was not found liable for rape in the E. Jean Carroll. Now, the difference between sexual assault and rape is, you know, can vary from state to state. So, I mean, they both involve, let's just call it sexual misconduct. But he sued ABC and I believe Mr. Stephanopoulos, and they reached a settlement under which ABC is paying legal fees and has agreed to donate money to the Trump uh, Museum or Presidential Center whenever that gets built. So that's a national story. Then more a local story here outside of Boston is the Everett mayor sued the local newspaper, and they were found to have defamed. They reached a settlement based upon his allegations that they had defamed him. So, what does this have to do with business owners uh, and entrepreneurs? People get upset about uh, when they don't feel vendors are performing, when they feel competitors are doing stuff that they don't agree with. And it is so easy to publish things today. And the next thing you know, on social media, someone in a fit of anger publishes something. One of the things about defamation, which can be libel or slander, libel is in writing, slander is oral, is in anger, you post something on social media about your competitor, and it better be true.
Hmm.
It better
So
be true.
That was the
So
question that I was going to ask, Mark. I just wanted to clarify. So is it the act of publishing? Because in both those cases that you cited, it was media were involved in some capacity. Does it have to be the act of putting it out there publicly, or if I
yes,
was in a dispute or something with a vendor, and I told a third party that that person is a cheat or cheated, and it's something in that
a
context, would
crook,
that?
an extortionist,
Yeah.
um, that communicating it to a third party is publishing.
Okay.
It's you can tell the person to face in writing whatever you think of them, but uh, publishing it to third parties, whether orally or in writing, can get you into trouble if it's false. Now, there's a whole standard that exists at the moment, which is there's a difference between public figures and non-public figures. If you're not a public figure, then uh, what I said, how I described it is true. But if you're a public figure, there's more protection uh, granted to people who publish things. And there's a old case called New York Times versus Sullivan that really makes it harder for public figures to find persons liable for defamation. And but I will say that there are people on the United States Supreme Court that would alter that decision from things that they've written. So I'm not sure whether the distinction is, but lawyers dealing with defamation cases, if one of the things they fight about is whether someone's a public figure or not, because it's easier to prove defamation if someone is not a public figure. And don't think that these disparagement, defamation claims don't come up in the context of businesses. Um, People say all sorts of stuff about competitors or um, and so it's usually good to begin a sentence with in my opinion. So you're
Hmm.
not saying it's a fact, you're expressing an opinion. On the other hand, uh, that's that doesn't give you total immunity either, but it's a helpful thing if you don't. There's a difference between saying, based upon my dealings, I think company X um, um, are frauds,
Hmm.
and uh, and publishing don't deal with company X. They're all a bunch of frauds. I'm
Really,
not
really
saying you
interesting.
couldn't be liable in the first situation, but it's certainly opinions are more likely to be protected than just an absolute statement.
Hmm. Well, I know it's really interesting you mentioned that, and in context of social media, there's all types of forums, as you know, call them neighborhood forums, things of that nature. Almost like bulletin boards, public forums, etc. And made a mistake of signing up for them, and I see those types of things written about companies and businesses all the time. So and so is a fraud. So and so is a scammer. We all know that we're living in an age of a lot of disputes or people doing things, and communication is so key. I think we were in a world of the expectation of instant communication all the time. And I've seen situations where, somebody takes a deposit and it's legitimate. He had a family illness. He dropped off the face of the planet for, 3 weeks, and somebody's out there, defaming them in some way when the poor person was dealing with a legitimate issue. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen on the other side, but I think, what I'm hearing you say is When in doubt, take a deep breath. Don't put it out there, and also make sure that you put it into context as in your opinion or through my experience, might help to at least buffer putting it out there and coming right out and slandering somebody.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it could be companies could sue individuals. They go online and badmouth an automobile dealer, for
Mhm.
example. Well, if
Well, I
it's
think
not factual, and the dealer is angry enough, they could be defending a lawsuit, which brings up a related issue that I just throw out there is what insurance protection do you have? And might your personal or business insurance cover a claim for defamation or not? Because there are uh, policies that may be helpful to a defendant in these cases. So um, just word to the wise, the 24-hour rule when you're angry is never a bad idea. And if you have any question about, whether you're really over the top, maybe ask a cooler head. If you're a business owner, or maybe just give your lawyer a call and have a quick conversation, or maybe have them look at what you're about to post to your 50,000 followers. Just be prudent.
Always great advice, Mark. I mean, I think following the old adage that your mother probably used to say to you, if you don't have something nice to say about somebody, don't say it.
Yes,
It's
and assume everything you publish is going to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and the lead story on every television station. And it's not always pretty when you see it up there.
Well, great advice considering we live in obviously litigious times, but also with access to social media and ease of self-publishing and the fact that you can put it out there, as you said, to thousands of followers with a couple of keystrokes and a click, or not even a tap of the microphone and a push send, and next thing you know, there's 50,000 people reading something that is not factual. So Mark Furman, director and shareholder, Tarlow, Breed, Hart Rodgers, always great advice. If people want to talk to you, if they have found themselves to be in these sorts of situations, or if they want more guidance, advice on any legal matters related to entrepreneurship, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Best way to reach me, Jonathan, is by email. It's mfurman, Furman, at tbhr-law.com.
This has been Entrepreneurship and the Law with Mark Furman, and we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.